All right, and we're back with another interview on the Scotty No Show. On this week's interview is with recent Stanley County Hall of Fame inductee, Sam Ostarello. Did I pronounce that right?
You sure did. You got it.
All right. Um, I first and foremost, I have to ask, what does it mean to you to be inducted into the Stanley County Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question right out of the bat. I would say, what does it mean to me? I mean everything. Honestly, throughout my entire career, just the community support has been unwavering and has been felt. But times like this brings you into moments of when I was a kid, I didn't even think about any of that stuff. And it kind of comes full circle. It's so interesting. I never had like set out sights to be, record breaker, a record holder or a Hall of Fame inductee or anything like that. It was the accumulation of the day-to-day grind, putting in the work. And yeah, it's just really, really interesting to kind of take a step back from that and say, well, I never even set out to do that. So it's kind of cool because you in the moment, you're not realizing that's happening, as far as from sports to academics to the band, all of those things. It was just part of like, hey, this is an everyday thing.
Yeah. And you had a lot of coaches and I don't know if you had any teammates there. Probably.
Couple,
Um,
yeah, couple teammates.
yeah. What does it mean to have those people there to kind of be there for you for your big moment?
Yeah, just the support. I mean, Mr. Rogers, Coach Rogers, he's near and dear to my heart. I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today without his support. Tiffany Roderick, Guy Hunter, the list goes on and on. Dave Tate from the track side, like all of these, people put endless amounts of energy and time into. Whenever this crazy kid wanted to get in the gym, somebody was like willing to produce a key, until I had my own. But
Yeah.
it's incredible. And I did see a couple of former teammates, and they're all doing well in their own respects, and it's just mind blowing to. I mean, that was 15 years ago. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible. I stepped into Parkview, and I kind of was transported back to being a 17-year-old, to be honest. And it was this really weird Twilight Zone type thing that was happening.
Um, Something that I don't know if you remember very well at all, but do you remember the first time you and I ever met?
Uh, was it a football game?
Yes, it was.
Okay, all right. I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it was a football game, but I don't want to sound stupid.
Yeah. You were working at the concession stand
Oh,
and I was wearing like a Hill City getup
okay.
and it was very cold. I remember it being very cold. And I went to get a hot chocolate and you said, "I hope you enjoyed that. I know where you live." And your friend that was working was like, "Sam, you can't say that to strangers."
Honestly, I'm not surprised because I probably have, I do have this kind of weird, dry sense of humor. And for sure, it was because you had that on there that I made it a point to let you know that. That is hilarious. I love that about me. And it hasn't changed, Scotty. I'm going to tell you that much. It has not changed.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did a little bit of research. You were born in Italy?
I was, yeah. My dad was in the Navy. So, but beyond that, my dad's side of the family is Italian. He just so happened to be stationed overseas. My brother was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, and then a year and a half later, I was born in Pozzuoli, Italy. So that's why that occurred. A lot of people think, oh yeah, because she's Italian, and she was born there. And I'm like, well, technically, I was American at the time, but
Where are you now?
I live in Evansville, Indiana, Wait, was that
Oh,
like a trick? Because I knew where you live. Now you're,
no, 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 no,
Okay,
no,
no,
no.
no. I live in Evansville, Indiana. It's on the southern side of Indiana, right on the Kentucky border.
Okay, okay. Um, you kind of mentioned it a little bit. You didn't just play basketball. You also did track, and you were in the band. Um, does it feel though kind of like your basketball accomplishments kind of overshadow your accomplishments elsewhere?
Oh, that's interesting. I also played volleyball for 1 year.
Really?
I did, yeah. Um, and we got out of districts, I believe. Whatever happened, it was monumental.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your question. Yeah, I mean, for sure, you say my name, it's synonymous with, oh, the basketball player. But yeah, it can get overshadowed by, or it does overshadow, my other accomplishments. But again, like I was just living. I was just doing my thing. And I think the craziest thing for me to think back on is in high jump, I could have gone to college for high jump. I wasn't recruited, but because I was already committed for basketball, but I for sure could have gone to and done some great things in high jump too. And looking back on it, I actually kind of thought like after my 4 years at Purdue with basketball, I was gonna do like a year on with high jump because you can do a continuous, you know, 5 year scholarship if it's a continuous thing. But then I tore my shoulder, kind of got out of that mindset, had to have surgery and things like that. But yeah, I guess it has kind of overshadowed that. But I think that people are very quick to also remind me, like, you're. They say you're a great human. It's less about what you've done in any sports field or anything like that in the classroom. It's who you are, and I just that really resides in such a way with me, and it just fills my heart. I'm gonna get emotional about it. I mean, I can't
Sorry.
tell you. No, I can't tell you how many people came up to me, at the game, and they were just like, "You are a great person," and I'm like, you don't even know me as an adult. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's kind of interesting, but everybody's been following, everyone's seeing what you're doing, and it's just those are the words and the actions that really are dear to me.
How important do you think it is for athletes in high school now to be kind of multi-sport athletes?
Oh gosh, Scotty, do we have enough time for this? Don't even get me started. I think it's imperative. It's imperative. My background now is in kinesiology and biomechanics and sports performance training. So the more I've learned, obviously experienced it, but the more I've learned, working in those planar fields. Basketball up and down, track, long distance, jumping, soccer, you're gaining skills that make you that all around athlete rather than this potential injury prone one dimensional athlete. I think it is imperative. I hear some things about in the summers, like it's the kids have to go to the strength sessions and they have to go to the practice and they have to do this, and you have sports now competing for those athletes' time, right? And so athletes are having to choose, and it's really a disservice, I think, to the whole system. But yeah, that's the day and age we're in, kind of this specialization and early specialization. It's getting like I got nephews that are 12 and 10, and they're asking them to not do other sports. I'm like, they're 10. They don't even know they're doing a sport. They're just playing. They're just, having fun. So yeah, I think it's imperative.
What was the kind of the getting recruited process like, and was Purdue the only school?
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about anything, Scotty, as far as getting recruited anywhere. I mean, my family, we don't come from a sports background. Like, thank goodness I had great people beside me, Guy Hunter, Tom Rogers. These people that really kind of took me under their wing, helped me understand, like, yeah, you can go somewhere. I didn't even know that was a possibility. So my recruiting experience is much different than many players, I'm sure. It went from you're a no name to 200 offers, like in a month.
Holy cow.
I mean, the mail just kept coming in, the invites to the camps and all of this stuff. And you have to remember, I didn't play any AAU. Like, this is because those two coaches, we burned, ciao. We recorded on VHS tapes and sent them to colleges.
Oh my goodness.
So, like, I mean, in a kind of weird way, they were like a little bit my agents, right? Because they're getting the word out. And I'm telling you, it was like wildfire. And then I was being asked to come to these camps, and I went from being a no name to being, ranked seventh in the nation, and in my class. So it was very overwhelming, to be quite frank. I committed very early because I did not want to deal with it. I couldn't have imagined what it might turn into. I was like, just so overwhelmed. But I mean, there were other colleges, obviously, in my top five that were involved. South Dakota State being one of those. Oklahoma was a top runner. Louisville was a top runner. Purdue, of course, and in Colorado. Excuse me, I forgot the fifth, but Colorado. And it boiled down to the connections I had with coaches. It boiled down to, what my degree was going to mean when I was done with school, and kind of trusting where I was going. I'll be straight up honest. Did I think I was good enough to go to Purdue? No. I thought they were taking, I mean, retrospectively, even in the
Okay.
moment, to be honest, I
Okay.
was like, dang, like, I know I'm going to have to push myself, which was great, get out of my comfort zone. But for sure, there was this, I kept hearing, oh, you have the potential, you have the potential. And I'm like, well, I know what potential is. Potential doesn't mean anything unless there's an action behind it. So I guess I'm going to provide that action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and playing there in the Big Ten, I gotta ask, what was it like playing in Mackey Arena?
Oh, it's unreal. It's unlike anything you could ever even dream of or fathom. I mean, we averaged 10,000 people in our attendance. Um, just the grandeur of the stadium itself is encapsulating. I mean, you get down on the floor and you look up at the concrete stairs going up, and the big dome at the top, and it's just like, it's huge. It's huge. But the feelings on game day, you can't beat that. Coming out of the tunnel, out of the train tunnel, like, everyone's cheering, and you just have this superhuman feeling of, you could really do anything. That's what it felt like.
Um, I know it's a big rivalry on the men's side.
Hmm.
Do the women does Purdue and Indiana hate each other on the
Oh yeah,
women's side?
that's a school thing. That's not, yeah, that is a school thing. And
Okay.
it's really interesting. I'm about 4 hours south of Purdue right now, and only 2 hours from Bloomington. So where IU is. So you can imagine I see a lot more crimson and cream, or whatever the crap their colors are, than I do of black and gold. But yeah, it's deep seated for sure.
Okay. Um, and I'm I'm curious as to this, living in Indiana, going to school at Purdue. Um, there's a phrase that I've heard from a guy I follow. Shout out Mark Titus. Um, in Indiana and 49 other states, it's just basketball. In Indiana, it's a lifestyle.
I would hold that. Yeah, it's pretty true. I mean, my wife is in college coaching right now, so she's recruiting. She's the recruiting coordinator for the University of Evansville, and the kids in the tournaments that she's going to see. I mean, it's massive in Indiana, and it's just like South Dakota, to be honest. Like, kids will drive or parents will drive kids, 2 hours to go to a training academy or to go play AAU. So it's not an uncommon thing between the two states. It's a really interesting parallel, but yeah, everybody loves them some basketball down here.
Do you wish that the NIL thing that we see all around now, do you wish that was kind of in place when you were in school?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Really?
I think it's actually kind of ruined college coaching and recruiting in general. I also think the transfer portal is a load of crap. It's going to allow universities in 10 years or even less to have this higher precedence over the, mid majors or the lower D1s or whatever. And it's just going to continue to create this divide. And it's unfortunate because there might be some diamonds in the rough, right? Like me, that are going to get overlooked and they're not going to be able to utilize what they've had in high school somewhere where it's going to be a good fit because some other place, got a different recruit for because of the money, because of the NIL. Or national NLI. I always confuse those. I think it's actually ruined the purity of the sport. Now it's more of a business. And I don't think it's right. I think endorsements are kind of a different thing, right? But as far as the top athletes getting signed on to Gatorade or Nike or something like that, but even still, they're going to have a brutal awakening when they go into professional sport. You're making 1.7 million now. That's great. You're not going to make that, in the WNBA or overseas. You're just
Yeah.
not. It's not there. And I think it also is, going into this generation's sense of entitlement. And I I I don't like the trajectory of where it's going, and it's probably a good part of the reason why I'm not into college coaching. Because I've seen it. I see it from both sides. Like I said, my wife's coaching at a D1 college, and it's pretty insane. I'm not going to lie.
Um, you played overseas, and you kind of mentioned the WNBA. Was there any possibility of you going into the WNBA?
Yeah, of course, there's always a possibility, right? Yeah, so right before my senior night, I declared for the draft, all of those things. And my senior year, I don't know if you know this, but my senior year around December, we played Notre Dame and I tore my shoulder. So labral tear, about 60% around, played through the rest of the season because I couldn't redshirt. I had played too many games up until that point of the season. So I did the whole shebang of cortisone shots, rehab, all of that while playing. Now, back to your question, at the end of the season, it was under wraps that I was, needing surgery. I had 6 teams for the WNBA offer me an invite to their training camp or interest of an invite to their training camp. And then, our news kind of got leaked out that I had a torn shoulder and I was dropped overnight. So was there a chance? Yes. And after that chance, there really wasn't. I kind of got shuffled into the mix of the overseas life, and I'll be real honest, I tried to get my stats, enough to come back to the WNBA for about 3 or 4 years, and I was just seeing over there too, and with my agents and stuff. It's almost not that it doesn't matter about your stats, but it's almost like, gosh, it's who you know. If your agent knows somebody to get you into a training camp and get you in front of them, you have a much higher chance to get seen and get on a roster. There wasn't any sending of DVDs, VHS, or highlights to help me out on this one.
I and you can probably you probably have an expert opinion on this. I don't think there's enough WNBA teams.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because you got 12, right? 13 maybe now.
Something like that, yeah. And
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 let's
Oh,
use 12 because I'm good at math with 12 times 12. So you got 12 teams, you got 12 players on a team. That's 24, 24 child. I'm not good at math. It's 144 jobs, 144 job opportunities. Now, if you look at that from a perspective of from the oldest to the youngest, the young players coming in from the draft, you have like about a 3%, even if you get drafted, you have about a 3% chance of making the team throughout the season.
yeah. And
Everybody else is older. Nobody's, I say nobody's retiring, but like unless you're already in by the time you're 26, you're not going to get in. But yeah, that it definitely needs to expand. But it's money, it's entertainment, and I think that's where the hang up is.
that there are teams and markets that used to have WNBA teams that don't have WNBA teams anymore.
Mhm.
When I was growing up, I remember the Houston Comets being an absolute wagon.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Sh-
had some star players on that team. And why did it fold? It comes down to economy and excuse me, obviously paying the player salaries. And if I'm not mistaken, most of the teams now are kind of like a almost backed by the NBA to some degree or
yep.
the G League or what have you. And that wasn't there obviously when the Houston Comets were up and running. But same for the team up in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to bring that team back actually this next year or so. But there's got to be more job opportunity. You have way more than 144 women searching around for a job in the WNBA.
And maybe this is just, I think this is a growing trend of kind of positivity here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like women's college basketball gets a little bit more respect now and viewership now than it did maybe even when you were playing.
Yeah, I mean, the game has evolved. It's crazy. I was watching the LSU South Carolina game, and that was the probably the first game that I was like, wow, that's kind of the style of basketball that we used to play. Then I look down the roster or start to know, the players there, and their fours and fives are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", respectively. And I'm like, well, I was a four, I was a 3'4", and I'm barely 6'2". I would
Hmm.
be demolished. So like people are seeing it, the talent, and it's great. I think the other change with the whole viewership and things like that goes to, we have some stud scorers, stud performers, and that's what it is. It's a performance that people want to go see. People want to see their team win no matter what. Don't get me wrong, but it's those little gems that, hey, that was a performance. I was there for that game, right? So now you have these record-breaking attendance, these attendance records being broken.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome. I think it's great for the sport. Um, I personally, I'm all for the team ball. Make that extra pass, get that extra stop on defense. I was never really a huge offensive-minded player. I'm still not. I really like the team aspect of it. But hey, if you have all those components and a top scorer, awesome. It's great. Great for the game.
What do you think of Caitlin Clark?
Yeah, well, she definitely outbid her card definitely got sold for higher than any of mine ever in my lifetime. I tried to sell it at the Chateau, but nobody really put down even $1. I was like, all right, it's fine. No, Caitlin Clark, she's one of a kind. Anybody can see that you can compare her with the likes of Kobe Bryant, right?
Hmm.
She is just uh, an anomaly in the game, men and women's, right? You had back when I played, you had Maya Moore, right? You had Brianna Stewart from UConn. These two players that were kind of that anomaly too. Skylar Diggins was a great, guard player, but never made this kind of impact like Caitlin. And I think too, with her being at a Midwestern school, that being Iowa, it really gives those kids that idea like, man, that could be me, right? They can relate to it. And I think that's a huge difference that I see within, especially the women's game coming from somewhere that you can relate to and meet those kids in their imaginations of like, I could do that, you know, that like I see me in her. I think that just holds a lot of value
Yeah.
coming from a Midwest standpoint.
And you talk about Midwest, women's college basketball players. There's another one over in Yukon, Paige Beckers, that people absolutely love here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, I haven't seen a ton of game on her since she got injured and things like that, but it's the same feeling. You got to find the common denominator between these kind of players, and a lot of it comes down to their character. And I think that's the thing you got to see is who are they as people, their character, how they present themselves on and off the court, and those values that they hold.
You kind of mentioned a couple of people, because you played against Brianna Stewart, didn't you?
I did. I blocked her shot. I blocked Maya Moore's shot. No, I won't get into it. We lost by 30, but I still got my block. Yes.
Yeah. And then Skylar Diggins, because as well, and I believe Jewel Lloyd was on that Notre Dame team as well.
Lloyd, yeah, she was. She was I believe she was a sophomore when I was a senior. So I had 2 years against her.
Yeah. What's it like playing against players that, you know, are that highly talented?
It's really fun when you meet them professionally, right? So uh, it's interesting. You just, I don't know. You almost don't want to say like, as you're on the court in college, you're like, wow, that's Skylar Diggins at Notre Dame, and you're like, wait, but I'm Sam Ostarello at Purdue. Do they have that same kind of thought, feeling, whatever? Now, if we're playing maybe a mid-major school or something, I'm sure that shift is a little different. But at the time, like Purdue was very known and very successful on the court. Struggling with your own kind of like imposter syndrome and things like that is one thing, but playing against the talent, shoot, it made you elevate every part of your game, right? It heightened it to a point. And if it didn't, you were crushed. So you had to elevate it, right? Um, yeah, those were the days. But again, then playing them professionally, for me, the epitome of basketball, my basketball career was, I would say, my first would be the Italian national team because there's no crazier feeling than that. And then would be college. Like I wouldn't even put any of my pro career on that top mark because it meant something different in college. You had a team playing all together. Pro, it's, every man for themselves. At the end of the year, you got to get your stats. So
How did that Italian national team thing come about?
I had been applying for my Italian citizenship for a while. I had to find all the paperwork and things like that, and I had went and gone and played in Italy. Um, Gosh, what was my first season there? 2016 maybe, and then finally in 2019, I had all the paperwork ready, or 2018 2019 season. Um, so again, it's who you know and who's ready to stick your name out there for you. The club team that I was playing for over in Italy, one of them was really good friends with one of the managers, was really good friends with the head coach of the national team. He's like, hey, watch out for Ostarello. She could be, become Italian, because I wasn't even Italian yet. You have to play in a FIBA sanctioned game. So they invited me to it's called a Raduno. It's like maybe like a training camp type feel. We didn't have any games or anything. It was just a 2-day thing, skills, drills, seeing how you match up against, 30 other people kind of a thing. And from then they're like, yeah, we're taking her. So I ended up, my first Italian trip was to Denmark. I got to, play on that stage and play my first game and earn my Italian citizenship overall, which was so cool. It was at a time in my life where nothing was certain at all. And it was just a blessing, really.
Um, are you fluent in Italian?
I would say like third grade fluent. Yeah. If we go over there, I can hold a conversation when I'm immersed in it a little bit more. But I was just telling my wife this yesterday. I was like, yeah, it's interesting because she said, do you think you could recall like our license plates on our cars? Because there was someone on the PA announcing. I'm like, no, but I'm sure if they said the sequence of numbers, I would know it's our car. And I was like, oh, it's just like Italian, I know it's there, but I can't just be like, I'll pull it up right away. It takes me a little bit, but once I'm there for a month or two, I around the city, I'm speaking Italian. I'm ordering, shopping, all of those things. So, but ask me anything political, climate involved, something like that. I'm gonna have a very short discussion about it. It's not gonna be long winded like this.
What's the is there a difference between like American Italian food and Italian food?
Oh yeah, huge difference. Yeah. I would say like I mean authentic Italian food is very light. Um for example, lasagna, right? That's Italian. We make that in Italy, we make that in America. The biggest difference there is the amount of meat that you use and the amount of cheese that you use. So, when they say like a sprinkle or a pinch, it means that. It doesn't mean the entire bag of shredded cheese. But here, in America, we're like, the more cheese, the better, right?
All right.
Yep.
Um, this is going to be a little bit of a fun question thing, and then we'll get out of here so that my contractors can continue working on my house.
Hey, I apologize. I can talk. I've done
Uh,
an interview one time or two.
oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Um, uh, how did you meet your wife?
Yeah, small world, let me tell you. 2012, Purdue played Maris in the Virgin Islands on a Thanksgiving tournament. She actually had a broken hand at the time. It was just kind of a, passing through the lines. But that's officially the first time we kind of met each other or knew of each other. And then fast forward to the the year I made the national team. So 2019, 2018, 20, no, 2019, 2020, excuse me. My point guard from Purdue ended up being her point guard in Italy on an Italian team. So our teams played against each other in Italy.
Would that have been KK Hauser?
It would have been KK Hauser. You got it. Yep, yep. So they were down in the south. I was up north. I just remember, meeting KK's like, you want to go to Florence? It was kind of a halfway point. I was like, yeah, for sure. And she's like, I'm gonna bring the other American. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. And so we all met in Florence, had a, grand time just gallivanting around and getting every wine bar and a food check place or check marked off. And we just had a really good time. We all made a plan to, during the February break, there's always two breaks, one in November, one in February. We were all going to go to Malta for a little 4-day trip just to get out, get away from the season. And KK ended up bailing. She went back home to the States. She couldn't do it after Christmas. And so I kind of hit Tori up and I was like, hey, I'm still going to go to Malta. Like, I know we don't know each other, but I'm still going to go if you want to go. And from there it was just it was like hanging out with a best friend every day. It was very, very organic, very cool. And then COVID hit. So
Oh God.
yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Um, what's your what's your favorite thing that she does for you on a regular basis?
Not bring work home.
Oh, I love that. Um,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, okay, in all seriousness, that probably is one of them. But I would just say the outpouring of love that she has on an everyday towards humanity in general. She's first to, offer a coat to somebody on the street that when it's cold out or something like that, if or offer a hot meal or etc. She just has a very big heart for all humans, and I think that's really important.
what's your favorite food and likewise, what's your favorite drink?
What kind of drink?
Whichever one you want, whichever
Favorite
one.
food? Oh man, that is tough. That is tough. So I love to cook. I cook almost I would say, out of the entire year, I probably cook 90% of the year, all of our meals. So that's very, very difficult. If I had to eat it the rest of my life or something like that, it'd probably be like eggplant parmigiana.
Ooh,
So like, chicken parm, but eggplant.
yeah.
It's fantastic. I make a pretty killer pesto, which is great. I mean, it's so hard to choose one. I'm just telling you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as a drink goes, I mean, I really only drink water. But
Okay.
in the as far as or like sparkling water, like San Pellegrino. I don't drink a whole lot of pop or anything like that, iced tea or anything. And then on the other side of it, I'm a huge bourbon lover. So
Really?
anything, yeah. Well, I mean, Bourbon Trail is like an hour
That's
hour
true.
south,
That's
you
true.
know. But my auntie probably got me started on bourbon, now that I think about it. But any kind of bourbon drink there, and yeah. Not that I'm a mixologist, but I also
Yeah.
make drinks.
Do you have a favorite animal?
Yeah, I haven't been asked that in years. Wow. I'm just I'm gonna like default. I love monkeys. I think they're so cool.
Oh,
Do you
what
love
kind?
them?
What kind of monkey?
Oh, shoot, just the little guys. I don't even know what
I
they're.
was squirrel monkeys.
Oh no, not that small.
Oh,
They're kind of
oh,
scary. They're kind of
oh,
scary. I
oh.
would just say like a chimp.
I love squirrel monkeys. They're so
Yeah,
cute. They're so
yeah.
cute.
I mean, but let's say domesticated animals. I mean, dogs. I'm a dog lover. I have three, and yeah.
Who was your favorite player growing up?
Hmm. Most basketball players like have this off the top of their head. I didn't really watch a whole lot of basketball. I didn't
Really?
know names. No, not at
Okay.
all. Not until like I was introduced to it. I didn't know there was this whole other world, out there based on that. But when I started to watch games and things like that, I would say watching Tina Thompson was one of them. Lisa Leslie, another one. But then you have to remember it was like when I was a freshman sophomore in high school. Before that, I didn't really watch anything. I didn't know sports were on TV on ESPN and ESPN2. I didn't know. But once I knew, loved watching Megan Vogel, right? Like home state, program and things like that. But yeah, I broke down a lot of like Magic Johnson tape.
Ooh.
And I mean, modeling your game that way was something that, Guy Hunter instilled. We watched a lot of breakdown with that. Um, but yeah, I was kind of here, there, and everywhere, to be honest. I got a funny story if we have time for it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was March Madness came up, and I promise I was like a sophomore in high school, maybe even a junior. God, that's probably embarrassing, but March Madness came about, I was in statistics class. Mr. Hunter said, "All right, we're gonna write out all the brackets on the board of who won, who lost, did this, that, and the other. Raise your hand who wants to go up there, write it down." I'm like, yeah, whatever. Raise my hand. I go after Adam Calkins. He had written some, one of the teams down, and Mr. Hunter said, "All right, UConn," and I put, "All right, UConn, YUKON." He looked at me like incredulously. He said, "You're joking, right?" I said, "What do you mean? It says you said UConn. I wrote UConn." And he's like, "You're serious?" And like, of course, like kids are laughing at me, and I'm like, "What is going on?" I had no idea University of Connecticut was UConn. No
Yeah.
clue. That's how out of the loop of basketball life I was a sophomore. I had no idea what listen, Scotty, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
I probably should have asked this when we were talking about Purdue, but when you were at school there, did you like attend or watch any of the men's games?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of friends that were on the men's team too, so that was the time when like Lewis Jackson, Robbie Hummel, Juwan
Yeah.
Johnson, that whole crew was there. Etwan Moore. Oh yeah, all the time.
I love Robbie Hummel. He's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, every time I walked past Robbie I was like, Yeah, well, he's a good guy,
Oh
nice guy.
yeah, very nice guy.
Yep.
I met him at the Final Four. I think when it was in Minneapolis.
Oh, cool.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I met him and Greg Oden. At,
Oh,
yeah, it
nice.
was a wild time.
Yeah,
Uh,
super.
do you, what's your favorite? Like, do you have any hobbies?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of hobbies. I love hiking, and like rock climbing, hiking. Going out to Montana. I have a couple of friends there from Lyman County actually that we go. We were trying to go every summer and kind of fell off when I was playing, but love that. Love camping, reading, just taking my dogs anywhere, any adventure I can think of. I take them everywhere.
What
Um,
what you reading now?
I am reading The Song of Achilles right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, we kind of here's a fun story too. We started my wife and I started before we were even dating or anything like that. We started a book club amongst ourselves, and we named it Between the Wines because we would go to a wine bar in Italy and read, and that was like our coffee hour, right?
I love that.
Yep, yep.
Um, do you listen to music at all?
Not a whole lot. I mean, if it's on the radio or something like that, sure. I'm actually super behind all the time on the new songs, new music. I have no idea. And it probably started from when I was overseas. Um, I wasn't a, I love music, but I just never really spent my time like browsing through a bunch or anything like that. If a song comes on, I'm like, oh, that's catchy. Like I'll look it up. But probably tell you the last song I have like downloaded in my Apple Music is like I know it. It's from 2019.
Okay.
So that's
Um,
that's the extent of that.
uh, what advice would you give to any young athlete that is making the transition or is about to make that transition from high school to college?
I would say utilize the resources you have. If somebody has said like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, let me know." Don't feel like an imposition. Don't let that deter you from asking for what you might need, whether it's a drill, whether it's thinking about like, well, what is college going to be like? What is a classroom? What is their everyday life, kind of like, what's that transition? What's the difference between the games? How can I get better? Right? Like, what do I expect to fall into when I'm going to college? I would just say ask. If you've been offered this opening of conversation to ask, utilize it. Don't feel like an imposition. I spent way too many years of my life feeling that way because I never wanted to be a burden or something like that. And yeah, I wish somebody told me that because I think there are a lot of great people in this world, and most of them, when they say something, they mean it. So take advantage of that.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Stay on for the post show, whatever. I don't know what I call that.
All
But
right.
thank you for coming on.
All right. I appreciate your time, man. It's good to get my voice back to, the home state. I love it.